Hey guys, be sure to stay until the end because we have a special giveaway to announce.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Court.
And hi, Be Critics fam. Welcome to another episode of the Be Critics podcast.
This episode is part of our Coming to Theaters or Now in Theaters series where we discuss new movies spoiler free. And this one is really hard not to spoil because a lot of what we want to talk about this movie is spoiler content.
Yep. So, Be Critics, grab your gear and hunker down because in this episode, we're giving you a full debrief on the creator and what you need to know before heading to theaters.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I saw this one 3 days ago. Me and my sister went to see it in theaters here in Charlotte, and she loved it.
Nice. It just came out in theaters, so if you've already seen it, you probably saw it opening weekend. Courtney and her sister went to see it opening weekend, just like she said, and I saw it a little bit early. I saw it like at an advanced screening in the city. It was very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so the creator is set in between the years 2065 and 2070. And it's pretty much the world is split in two between those who live harmoniously with AI and those who wish to destroy it forever. A special agent who believes he has lost everything suddenly finds out otherwise and is determined to recover his old life by helping the AI haters find and destroy new technology that's been created to free AI for good. Things become complicated when he discovers that this new technology isn't horribly scary or destructive, but is merely a child. His mission quickly moves from destroy to protect. Has he found the weapon in time? Will he be able to protect the child from those who wish to harm her? And will AI finally be free? Watch to find out.
I like the AI haters. That made me
The
laugh.
haters.
They don't call them that in the movie, right? That's something you made up.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cute.
It's just like the Western world and New Asia is what they refer to them as.
Yeah. So this movie is 2 hours and 13 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
It's rated PG-13 and it premiered on September 29th of this year. So just a few days ago as we're recording this. It was produced by 20th Century Studios, and the director is Gareth Edwards, who also directed Rogue One and the 2014 Godzilla.
Yeah, and if you follow along like on our Instagram or TikTok or anything like that, you know that we got to go to a Q&A session with Gareth Edwards, and just like from that session and other interviews I've seen on the internet recently, he seems like very down to earth and he clearly knows what's going on, and he's like a creative mind. Like you can just tell just by looking at him.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, like what you were telling me about the way that he was speaking about the creative process. Like he had so much to say about it. Um,
Mhm.
but as far as his previous films goes, Rogue One, I loved Rogue One. I think it's like my
Mhm.
favorite of the new age, like Star Wars movies. I was obsessed. I've seen that movie so many times. And weirdly, I remember going to see the 2014 Godzilla in theaters, and me and my friends went and like we took pictures with like the Godzilla posters and stuff. And I remember that movie being really good. I've only seen it that one time, like in theaters, I'm pretty sure. But I do remember it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen either of those, but I
Girl,
have
you
heard good
have
things about
to
Rogue
go see
One.
Rogue One. You have to go see it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, whenever I find some time, I'll add that to my list.
So we've got a pretty small cast here, which I think is kind of nice because you get to spend a lot of time like with them.
Mhm.
But we've got John David Washington who plays the main character Joshua. and then Gemma Chan, who plays Maya, which I think she does like crazy girlfriend like really well. We saw her in Don't Worry Darling, where she played
Mhm.
like this the crazy like wife of Chris Pine's character. And I feel like this is like in a weird way a similar character.
Yeah, she's also in the new Mission Impossible movie. She's like a
Oh, cool.
new villain character in that movie.
Yeah, see, she always plays like kind of a villain a little
Mhm.
bit.
She's
Yeah.
got the look. She's got the like sassy thing like down really well.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And John David Washington, I thought was fabulous in this movie.
Yeah, I loved him. He was so believable. Like there wasn't any moment where I was like, okay, like this is obviously acting. Like I felt like I was watching his life story, which was
Yeah, I
really
feel like he
cool.
put a lot of personality into it as well,
Mhm.
which I think helped
Yeah.
contribute to that feeling of like it being like his life.
Mhm.
So then we have Allison Janney, who plays Colonel Howell.
Yep.
I feel like that was like a typecast for her. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like very
Yeah,
well
she does
cast,
play that
but
part
yeah.
very well.
Um,
I loved
and
her.
then yeah, she was pretty good. And then surprise edition, we have Madeline Una Voiles, who plays
Mhm.
Alfie, or like the child weapon who ends up with John David Washington throughout the movie.
So, whenever you see a movie that's got like a young child actor in it, you're always like a little bit weary about how the child's gonna do.
Yeah.
I was like shocked at how well she portrayed this character. There was like a couple iffy moments, but overall, I thought she was like absolutely amazing. And the amount of emotion that she was like able to bring to the movie was just like, it's like I'm speechless. Like, she was so good.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of what contributed to that was the chemistry between her and John David Washington, because
Mhm.
a lot of that emotion came from their relationship and moments between the two of them. And I think that they worked really, really well together.
Yeah, in the Q&A that I went to with Gareth Edwards, he made a comment about their relationship, and he was like they had such good chemistry. They were like best friends on set, and he's like I don't think that I could even like begin to understand like the relationship that they have, which is really sweet and cute.
And like kind of parallels like what their characters are like with a very unique relationship in the movie.
Mhm. Yeah,
Hmm.
very unique. Speaking of their relationship, it has a lot to do with the story in general. Throughout the movie, it mostly centers around their relationship and how they're living their lives and getting through this really challenging war, essentially. Um, and this movie specifically is like an original sci-fi. First of all, I don't think we had any other sci-fis come out this year. Like I think this is the only sci-fi so far that's come out, and it's an original, which is kind of wild. Um we've been getting a lot of like PI movies recently with the Marvel movies, and
Hmm.
like it just feels like it's been a lot of like sequels, and so it's refreshing to see a movie that's like completely new. And like I kind of hate to say it, but this is probably going to be like a world building situation where they like make other either movies or TV shows like about this like world, either
Yeah.
pre or post like this movie.
Yeah, the story is definitely very original. And one thing I think is cool is how it parallels like what's going on right now with like the revolution of AI. I
Mhm.
think because like we're going through like an AI revolution right now, and they're starting to build data centers like crazy to house it. And um it's kind of funny, like when this movie started, it's set, we mentioned, in 2065. And I
Mhm.
turned to my sister and was like, "Is this what it's gonna be like,
In
40
35
years from
years.
now? Like, that's not that far away. This is
Yeah.
kinda scary." And a lot of the elements of it felt kind of like Star Wars, like with the ships and the way that they moved
Mhm.
and stuff. And I I thought that was neat, but it's interesting. Like I almost felt like it was unrealistic that it was so close to 20, like to today. Like I feel like it should have been set like 100 more years in the future, but maybe not. Maybe because technology grows so fast. Maybe it's sooner than we think.
Yeah, I kind of agree that I it's like hard for me to imagine that in 30 years that's like where we're going to be.
Yeah.
Um but also like it was believable in a way, like it felt like this is like where the world is going. Like one day there could actually be these like robot people, like robot programmed people that like live lives and like have emotions and like have relationships with quote unquote real people. And I don't know. It was
Hmm.
like intriguing. It made you think like what side would I be on? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely realistic because I don't think we're that far away from being able to create like AI robots that can talk to you. I
Mhm.
mean, to be perfectly honest, I think the crazy thing about this movie is just that somebody made the decision to make them in the form of like a human being, which
Mhm.
I also don't think is like that far fetched if you think about it, because like you can think about like in Saudi Arabia, they're making that new city.
The
You know what I'm
giant
talking
like
about?
wall thing
I don't know.
that's like
There, I can't
completely
remember.
like encapsulated.
There's some, like, new city that they're making, but, like, if you go to the websites for it, I don't know if it still says this, but 2 years ago when you went to the websites for it, it mentioned, like, having waiters and waitresses that were, like, robots that would, like, serve you and stuff, and I was like, "This is so
Mm.
futuristic, and it's only, like, 2020, like, what is the plan here?" So
Yeah. So we already talked a little bit about like Gareth Edwards and his creative process, and one thing he said is that the AI is meant to be like a metaphor for people who are different or get alienated for some reason, which I can totally see. Um,
mhm,
in the movie, the West is trying to completely eradicate these AI people for an event that happened. And like the people don't really know what happened. Like nobody, quote unquote, really knows. And so it's just kind of like somebody said, like pointed a finger, and now everyone has decided that's the person to go after. And it's probably very um what's the word I'm looking for? Validating for
yeah.
some people out in the world to see like it portrayed in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think they did a good job with, like, capturing emotions around the AI, because I thought going into it that I wasn't going to have them. And they kind of had that as a theme throughout, that like,
Mhm.
should you have emotions around these robots, right? They're just programming, they're just robots. And I thought that was like a really good ad, because like I was sitting there thinking like, I'm watching this movie, like I'm not going to feel sympathy for these robots, and then I like was kind of.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
just like people.
Mhm.
Last thing I'll say about the story being original, because I know we've, like, harped on that. There's a good quote from Gareth Edwards, and this was not in the Q&A session I saw, it's the one from London, and I actually got this quote from Lewis Murphy, who's on our last episode, he does Movie of the Day. But Gareth Edwards said, "The cinema experience is a democracy, and your ticket is your vote." So he was pretty much saying, like, if you like these original movies, like you have to go and support the movies that are the original ones, or
Mhm.
the production houses are just going to keep pumping out these sequel movies. So if you're remotely interested in seeing this movie, I would highly recommend seeing it in theaters. It's like out of this world.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think you should support this movie, and it's worth it. It's a good movie.
Yeah. And it had like a pretty low budget. So this movie, the budget was $80 million, which for a sci-fi movie is like really low, especially when you
Yeah.
consider movies like Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible that had like $300 million budgets.
Yeah.
And to see like what they were able to accomplish with this movie and how good it looks, like the visuals are incredible.
Yeah. For context, the default project for all Marvel movies, the budget is $100 million plus.
Yeah.
So this movie slated at 80 million is kind of a feat of cinematography in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, and there was a lot that Gareth Edwards specifically did to keep the budget down. So things like the movie shot almost entirely on location. They shot in 80 different locations. Like we mentioned, they had a small cast, so they were able to move people
Mhm.
around to these different locations fairly easily, but it was shot almost entirely on location. They were able to reduce timing needed for shooting by putting all of their lighting on sticks like the booms are. And so
Mhm.
that helped keep their cameras mobile. They didn't have to like move the set around every time. So that, and it also allowed them to have longer shots, which
Yeah, yeah.
you can definitely tell in the movie that there's a lot of shots that are like panned shots. They're not like chopped up, like they're just following the people around, which is pretty cool.
I saw
Um,
somewhere that called it, like, guerrilla filming, like, kind of
yeah.
how, like, guerrilla warfare. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Gareth Edwards used the term reverse engineering. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but pretty much what they did was they shot everything, they compiled it all together, like put the final edit of the movie together, and then they added the special effects. So everything that you see from like the robots' heads to the guns to the explosions, all of that is added like post production, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool and
I think
different.
that gave it a very, like, Star Wars type feel or, like, truly
Mhm,
sci-fi type feel. So,
mhm,
the cinematographer is Greg Fraser, who's an Australian cinematographer who has worked on Rogue One, because he worked with Gareth, and then he also has been on Dune, the 2021 Dune, and also the Dune Part 2, and then Zero Dark 30 is another one of his, but he, I think was able to bring, like, this really, really cool way that the movie was shot to make it feel kind of like how a Star Wars movie would feel.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
I also liked how they shot on location because that also is very similar to like a true sci-fi movie where like
Mhm.
you're actually there. Like you're in these expansive places and there's stuff going on that's
And it
futuristic
looks
or
so much better because of that. Like,
agreed.
in my opinion, like, this is probably the most beautiful movie that's come out this year. And, like, just visually looking at it, like, it just looks so good. It's seamless. You can't see the special effects. Like, it was so well made. And we already talked about the budget, but I just, like, can't believe that they were able to do what they did on the budget that they had.
Yeah, I agree.
And just one more thing about the way it all looks. Gareth Edwards was going for like a retro futuristic vibe, which I think he like hit the nail on the head there.
I think so too. The guy, I don't remember who it is, but he was wearing like those like 80s glasses, like the big huge frames. And I was like, wait a second, is this 2065 or 1985?
Yeah, and another quote from him, and I don't know if I'm like fully bought into this, but he said that when they were designing the robots and like all the futuristic stuff, that they pulled from like Sony and Nintendo designs. So he specifically
Mm,
credited the Sony Walkman and Nintendo, saying like, think if Nintendo and Sony had won the technology boom over Apple. And like that's kind of what he gave in this movie.
that's definitely what it felt like because there were a lot of moments where I was like, I feel like technology has like advanced beyond this, but I think
Mhm.
that kind of to me makes it more like a dystopian movie too than like a true
Mhm.
sci-fi because it's like the world today is progressing a little bit differently than like the world of this 2065.
Yeah. So the next thing we wanted to bring up is the score. And it's a Hans Zimmer score, which whenever Hans Zimmer is involved, people are immediately intrigued because he just makes the
Yeah.
best scores and soundtracks.
Yep. It was
Um,
his first time working with Gareth Edwards, but his
mhm,
third time working with Greg Fraser because he's worked on Dune and Dune Part 2 before.
mhm,
I love a good Hans Zimmer score, and I think the music throughout this was really, really like intense and intentional,
Mhm.
and I liked it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I This is not my favorite of Hans Zimmer's work. This movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I thought it was good, but I wasn't like blown away by it. Um,
Well, so I have some comments on that.
yeah.
I like the score because I always like before we record, I always listen to the score like
Mhm.
while I'm prepping. And well, I mean, I do because I want to be like in the mood
Yeah,
for the movie. And
in the
so I
right
like the
headspace.
score, but I noticed while I was watching this movie that the score and um, other music was used in really weird places. So they
Mhm,
used the music over like action or fighting sequences. So there would be like really intense like fighting sequences, and they would have this like intense music over it. So you couldn't really hear the audio from the fighting, or like it would kind of like montage through fighting sequences with music. And I was
mhm.
like, this is like kind of weird because I feel like that's
It's
like a
almost
stark,
distracting.
yeah, it was a little bit distracting for sure. Like there was a part where the Radiohead song played, which is not the
Mhm.
Hans Zimmer score, but that sequence, like I remember looking over to Kendall and being my sister and being like, okay, this song is super cool, but the like it's really distracting to like what's going on
Mhm.
right now. And like we noticed it so much that like it kind of took us out of the movie.
Yeah.
Um but
Also,
I
you have a Hans Zimmer score. Why are you playing a Radiohead song in the middle of your movie?
well, I
Not
listened
to
to the
be
Radiohead
like
song.
Debbie Downer on the songs, but I liked the
Yeah,
song. I just thought it was weird.
well, probably because their audience, like I'm thinking of like Matt Speakman or one of our previous
Hayden.
guests who like they probably love Radiohead. So they were
Hayden
probably
was
like, "Oh,
very excited, yeah.
sick." Yeah. Which the song that we're talking about, it's called Everything in Its Right Place. And it actually like is a super cool song. And I was listening to it and I was like, this song like encapsulates like the feel of this movie pretty well,
Yeah,
honestly. And I thought it was a great addition, but I just kind of like what I was saying before, I think the timing or placement of it was a little weird, a little off.
yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So, the next thing we have to talk about, which we've done for the majority of our other spoiler-free episodes, is just like what stood out to us from this movie or made it different from other movies like this or other movies by Gareth Edwards or other movies with the same actors in it.
So a couple things stood out for me. One was they used these like title slides throughout the
Mhm.
movie to explain like I guess like the chapter that we were on or like the topic that we were going to be at for the that part of the movie, which I thought that was pretty cool, but I also thought it was like a little bit hard to follow. I wonder if like going back and watching it again, it would be easier to follow. Um and then another thing that stood out to me is like they really had such we mentioned it before, but such a small cast. Like
Mhm.
all the American fighters and soldiers, like they did not build any character or personality in them. Like they were just like straight
Mhm.
up like this is how they are. And then the only characters that really had like a personality was our two main characters, really, which was John David Washington and Madeline Univoyles. Like I feel like they're the only ones that like got a real like character arc.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up because like while you were saying that, I was just thinking that was totally done on purpose. Like
Yeah.
having the humans who are like, "Oh, these are just robots, they're not real," have no personality and like no emotion to them, like in stark contrast to these AI people who are like the best people.
Yeah.
Like that was well done, Gareth Edwards, well done. Um to me, and I already said this, what stood out the most to me and made this movie different is the visuals. It was so well done. It was so well shot.
Mhm.
And this kind of like leads into the next section, like the in theater experience. So it was shot on a 1970s anamorphic lens, which gives it a 3.5 to 1
Cool.
aspect ratio. And Gareth Edwards was wanting to make it like the widest possible shots to get the most like atmosphere included in the
Mhm.
movie. And the most that they do, because and if you saw it in IMAX, how did you see it? Did you see it IMAX or standard format?
Just standard.
Okay. So
But
the
it
bigger
was,
the
like,
screen,
skinny. Like, I
yeah,
remember
the
that
bigger the
it
screen, the more black there's gonna be, right?
yeah.
And so they cut it down to 2.76 to 1, which is the widest possible format. Um, and I mean, it's meant to be seen on the biggest screen possible, but the bigger the screen, the skinnier the movie's gonna be. You'll just be
Yeah.
able to see more of it, which I think is like an interesting choice. It makes sense for this movie because it is so atmospheric. Like seeing what's going on around the characters is what like gives it its feel.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just an interesting choice to me. I don't know. I'm not an expert. We're not experts. So I don't know like what that does like for the movie other than like showing you more of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have a note here that says producer said absolutely not. So to me,
Yeah.
that means it was like a pretty bold choice. And I do
Mhm.
think it was a little bit distracting when I was watching it, that it was like it didn't take up the full screen. It was like so skinny,
Mhm.
and had like the black bars on the top. So I definitely think it will lose some of like your generic audience that isn't like movie buffs that like appreciate the
Mhm.
fact that it was shot so wide. Because you have to think too,
Yeah.
like the people that are going to see this movie, like they watch Marvel movies, and Marvel
Mhm.
movies are like such like a very
Full screen
specific way
movie.
that they're done.
Yeah. I will say too, because I posted like the little teaser video with just like the opening screen for the advanced screening. And
Hmm.
I did get multiple people commenting like, is the screen that small? Like, why does it look so small? And like this is why.
Well, the
So just
very
keep that in
first
mind.
shot too is like a TV shot, and it does
Mhm.
make the screen smaller. I don't know if that
Mhm.
impacted that shot at all, but
No, this was
then
just
it
like the
kind of
title slide,
oh,
like that
okay.
they
Then
leave
it
up for the advanced screening, but yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. So keep that in mind if you're going to see it. It's not going to take up the whole screen, probably, unless they are shrinking down the aspect ratio. But yeah, if you can see it in IMAX, you should try to.
Yeah. Yep. Unless you're like me
Okay.
and you are religiously going to the same theater always. Um, that doesn't have
So,
IMAX.
do you have anything else that you wanted to say that we didn't capture, Courtney? Or I think we're
I
good.
don't think so. I think we talked about everything I wanted to add in my notes.
Yeah, everything else I have to say would be a spoiler, so we'll just move on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so the
Stop
last
us
thing we always
now.
do yeah, the last thing we always do is go over our ratings. So just as a reminder, we use the letterbox rating scale, which is 0 to 5 stars in half-star increments, and Courtney, you are up.
Oh, I get to go
You get
first.
to
Wow,
go
this is new.
first.
So I gave this movie a 3 out of a 5 star,
Yeah.
and I thought it was pretty good. It was fun to watch. Me and Kendall had a blast, like, watching it and, like,
Mhm,
being immersed in the film. I think the reason that it didn't get a higher rating is because I thought the story was a little bit hard to follow,
mhm,
and that, like, pulled and some of the, like, the choices with the music, like, pulled me out of it. But all of the individual elements of the movie I thought were, um, really, really well done, especially the cinematography and the acting of our 2 stars.
mhm. Yeah, so I also gave this 3 out of 5 stars for
Twins.
similar reasons to you. There's, like, no you can't say that this is not a well-made movie. It's beautiful, it sounds great, the acting is
Yeah.
great. What pulled me out of it, so this is an original story, and, like, I get it, AI's been done a lot, but I felt like the story wasn't like, it kinda had the same tropes as a lot of other movies that include robots and AI, and it just, like, had elements in it, like, that we've seen before. So it didn't feel like I was watching, like, a completely new movie.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I didn't like it. This will be one that I probably watch a lot because I really enjoyed it. It just didn't feel like I kind of felt like as I was watching it, I was like, like, okay, like I get it, like I've seen this, like you don't need to explain it to me, like we've seen it before, kind of just like move on from it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why it's at 3 out of 5. Still a great movie. Um, and it's definitely has rewatchability just because you're probably gonna see new things every time you watch it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah.
I'm surprised that we are like aligned on that. We like rarely align on movies like
I know,
that.
a rare movie where Listen Court feel the same. Who
It's
would have
wild.
thought? I mean, a sci-fi movie makes sense for that to be because I think in general we both like sci-fi movies. So
Yeah. Very
yeah.
true, very true.
Although you haven't seen Rogue
Okay.
One, which is like basically a sin in my book. So
I literally wrote down add to watch list, okay? It'll be on
oh,
there. I'll watch it
cute,
eventually. We'll get to it.
cute.
All right. So something else that we've been adding into a lot of our episodes is write-ins from some of our listeners and followers. And so I'm going to keep that up today. So we have 4 that I've selected from our write-ins. So the first one is from Rank It Up, and they said great CGI/designs and creativity. Totally agree. The
Yeah, I
next
agree.
one is from Film versus Film podcast, and he said incredible visuals, okay story, super dumb American soldiers, which yep.
I I co-sign all of that. That's awesome.
And then our third one is from Senna Egg, which we have had theirs on here before. They have great takes. They said could have been better in some aspects, but I'm still very happy with what we got. Great movie.
Yeah.
And our last one is from Mr. Lewis Murphy. We mentioned him already in this episode, and we did our Midsommar episode with him, which just came out last week. But he said, and he got to see this advanced screening as well, and he went to the Q&A session in London, so he's very well versed. He said, I absolutely adored this movie. It seems like original sci-fi was not off, just on standby. So if you've seen the movie,
Oh,
you know
that's so
what that
cute.
means.
Wow,
Very,
Lewis,
very
so
cute.
creative.
Yeah.
Obsessed
So
with
those are
him.
our write-ins. Had a great time with those.
Cute. All right, should we tell the people what the internet thought of the movie? At least so far, because it's only
Yeah.
been
What
out
is the
for
world thinking?
a few days. So
Uh-huh.
far, the Letterboxd average is at 3.8 out of 5,
It's a very,
which,
very healthy average.
yeah, that for Letterboxd, it really, really is. That means like the first people going to see it are enjoying it. The
Mhm.
tomato meter, which is the critics' score on Rotten Tomatoes, is 68%. And
I'm kind of
then the
surprised
audience,
by that. Just because of how well the movie is made, that the critics, and also I'm going to look into this. I like, what credentials do the tomato meter critics have that
yeah,
they're like the critics?
we
Cuz
should
like
look into that.
I don't agree
That
with
would be
them usually.
fun.
I think they're typically
Well, I
wrong.
mean, 3 out of 5, we're both like pretty much aligned with them. That would be like 60%, so they're higher than us.
Yeah.
So the B critics are A critics this week. With the tomato meter critics. Um, the audience score was 77%.
Mhm.
IMDb was 7.3 out of 10. And then 89% of Google users have liked this movie. So,
That's pretty
all
good.
around, people who have been going to see it have really, really enjoyed it. So,
Mm,
we would also um, second that and recommend that you go see this one for yourself.
yeah, I'm probably gonna go see it again, like, maybe this coming weekend. I'm like, I really, really enjoyed it, so
I'm surprised you only rated it a 3 then, because usually, like, when I want to go see a movie again, I rate it 4 or higher. So,
yeah.
but to
There
be
was just a
fair,
few things.
I rated Barbie, I think, a 3 out of 5 the first time I saw it. And then the second
Mhm.
time I went and saw it, I rated it higher. So
Yeah.
maybe that'll be kind of similar with this one because it's an original story. Like you'll be able to follow it easier the second time.
Yeah, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so that's it for our episode. It's time for us to say goodbye. But before we sign off, I wanted to extend a huge thank you to Allied Global Marketing, Regal Cinemas, 20th Century Studios, and our friend Luis for supplying me tickets to the advanced screening. It was super, super fun. I had a blast. And I can't wait for all of you to see the movie too. I feel like if you're watching this, you probably haven't seen it. So super excited for that. And if you do see it, like be sure to like hop in our DMs. Like we love talking about movies with you guys. So let us know what you think.
Yeah, definitely let us know what you think when you go see it. We're definitely curious to hear what y'all's thoughts are because all we have so far is the beginnings of the internet. Okay. So I think it's sadly time for us to say goodbye, but thank you for tuning into our The Creator spoiler free movie review episode. Be sure to leave us a rating or review, drop a comment on our YouTube, and leave us an answer to our poll and Q&A section on Spotify.
You can find more information about the podcast and our whole podography on our website, bcritics.com, or find links to all the things on our Linktree and the episode show notes below.
And be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss it. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
Yes. And for this episode, we're going to be doing a little giveaway. So, this poster right here behind me, I have 2 extras from the IMAX viewing that I went to that also come with these like lanyard things, which I know are kind of coveted. So, we're going to be giving out 2 of those to 2 people who review us on Spotify. So if you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and like hop in there and leave us a review or a rating or whatever it is. Send us a screenshot. You don't have to send us a screenshot of like what you rate us, though we think it should be 5 stars, just saying. But send us a screenshot that you left a rating and we will add you to the giveaway list.
Yay. Yeah, y'all should enter. Get your poster.
All right, that's it. So we will see you all on the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.